Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. Today I have a question for you. What if the place that you feel pain isn't actually where the problem is? A lot of times we look at just how somebody stands and they say, I have pain in my back. And the doctor says, okay, you have back pain. Let's create some exercise for you and make you go more into that motion. Pain and movement aren't always the same thing. How we are standing doesn't translate into what we look like when we're walking. It doesn't translate into what we're doing as we're tumbling and stunting. If you're having pain with stunting and tumbling, we need to look at what's your motion look like as you are performing those skills, and what's the breakdown of movement patterns that feeds into that particular movement pattern that you have to do when you're doing a stunt. Or if you're an adult and you are working to play golf or rake the yard or empty out the dishwasher, we want to make sure that we look at the quality of movement beyond just the quantity of movement. If you don't know me, I'm Laura Turner. I'm a doctor of physical therapy and I'm a strength coach. And I am really working to educate people on how movement happens, what is missing, helping to identify what is missing from movements, and give you the tools so that you can start to look and see what does your body need to do a movement better. So I want to tell one story today about a client that I recently saw in the clinic. He's an older gentleman and has had chronic intermittent back pain for years. But more recently, it's gotten a little bit more sore after he was skiing and his lower back got really sore and tired. So we waited a few months and didn't get better on his own. So I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, you have pain down here in your lower back and your glutes, and that's because you don't stand up straight. What I want you to do is stand up straight and push into that extension motion. What we found together is that he doesn't have that motion, and it's quite painful. But when he bends forward towards his toes, he also doesn't have that motion, and he can only get his hands to mid shin. And that was not painful. We did some testing and looked at other motions that went along with that and found that actually his back extensor muscles were jacked up and super tight and overworking, and his abdominal muscles were underworking. So we gave him homework. He's not doing the back extension. We are actually doing more flexion exercises to loosen up those muscles, get his back flexing more, and then stabilizing and creating the motions that create flexion and strengthening his abdominals. But if he had kept pushing like the doctor had wanted, he's just going to be pushing into pain. And that's going to make things tighten up more, and it's going to inhibit the abdominals more. And then it's a big cycle. I don't blame the doctor, and I don't blame the client for wanting to do what the doctor told him, because of course you're going to do that. But the doctor doesn't really look and see, okay, where is the motion missing? He saw that he couldn't extend, and he saw that his back didn't extend. He didn't notice that his hips don't also extend. We started at his low back because that's where things are really tight. Next time he comes in, I'm going to look at his hip flexors and his glutes and see what's going on there, because he doesn't have full hip extension. But if we crank on the back extension, it's not going to help his hip extension. And if we improve his hip extension, it's actually going to reduce strain on the lower back. We want to make sure that we create better motion patterns, that we're not just looking at forcing a motion into something that maybe we see as missing in a static position. We need to check and see, how is your client? How are your athletes? How are they moving? Looking at somebody that's doing a stunt and holding them overhead, they're just automatically hyperextending. So yeah, they might have pain there. But when you take them down onto the ground, maybe they do need to strengthen their back muscles and learn a better position to be able to hold that. I want to know, why is the pain happening? What movements are missing? I don't push through. I rate it on a, they can do it or they can't do it, and it's painful or it's not painful. If it's painful and they can't do it, I'm going to leave it alone for a little bit. Let that quiet down. But if it's non-painful and they can't do it, give them exercises to help improve that motion. Why, you might ask, would we do this? Partly because pain's a signal to the body that something's wrong. So if we're always pushing into pain, the brain's going to look and say, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. Don't do that. Instead, we need to look and see, what can you do? What can we do to make an improvement in that motion? And we need to look for different clues. So this guy couldn't touch his toes. Is it his hamstrings that are blocking that, which is then creating more pressure on his hips? Or is it that he actually needs to flex his spine? This is what I do in the clinic, but you can tell, do the hips hinge? Are they able to get down? Are they flexing through their spine? Just looking at each of the different pieces of the motion is what can be helpful to determining what's missing and what you need to do to give them as exercise. We've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, thinking about the next time your back might hurt, or if you have an athlete with back pain, what exactly is working hard and what needs to work more? Is it the area that is actually painful that needs to loosen up and have better motion? Or is it an opposite area that might need to get stronger? Most of the time in corrections, you can look at one side of the joint and the antagonist muscle on the other side of the joint are kind of fighting against each other. Not always. I talk sometimes about cross patterns and other body positions, but something that's an antagonistic muscle might be underworking. And so doing an assessment of just seeing, can you bend forward and touch your toes? If you have pain when you squat and it's really tight, can you actually lean backwards without pain? Can you touch your toes without pain? If not, start there and what's missing from there. As we go along, I will break down further movement patterns and talk about them. And hopefully that's going to help you to start to break down and be able to see what's happening as well. Remember, movement always tells a story. Our job is not to force better movement. This guy forcing extension isn't going to make him better. But we want to learn how to read the story, how to see the whole picture, and not just look at the body as a single unit of back or wherever their pain might be. If you have questions, please reach out. If you do have back stiffness, I have a movement tracker that I'll leave a link in the show notes below, and you can take yourself through an assessment of full body movements and learning how to move the pelvis. It gives you some full body motion so that you can rate your pain and see where you fit. This is a great tracker to use with all of your athletes also. So if you are a mom at home, feel free to download it and just take it, and then you can do a recheck every week. And then I also have Move Better app, and that has an assessment tool on it, and it just tells you, where am I stiff today? And that'll give you some different exercises to help work on that stiffness. Let me know if there's a movement pattern that you'd like to see in the future and have me talk about in the future. Have a great week. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe out. Take life one step at a time. You can do anything you put your mind to, and you are responsible for your own vibes, just like my friend Drew Keller used to say. Have a great day.